Hey everybody, this is Greg Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Petixonian Institute of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Junji Ito's Venus in the Blind Spot. Excuse me, a collection of some of his finest short stories. This is from the recent Viz re-releases that they've been putting out of all of Ito's work. I believe for like the past 4 or 5 years, they've been putting out these beautiful books, just really well-made books. Of course, the material that they reprint is amazing, great Junji Ito stuff. So I gotta show you this. This is the kind of extra stuff they do in this series. So the slipcase opens up. On the back is just this beautiful mini poster, basically. It's fucking gorgeous. Really nice printing. There's the front cover. So it's basically the same thing as the front cover, but without any of the wordage. And so that's nice. I'll put that aside. So, here we go. Gotta do it backwards. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's disrespectful to half the population of the planet. So, has nice end papers. This is from one of the stories. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. I should show that off. That's pretty nice. But Junji Ito, if you don't know, is the master of horror manga in Japan. An amazing writer and artist. I've been kind of addicted to getting this stuff for the past few years. So here's this nice little portfolio kind of in the beginning. We got, flip this around a little. This is, it's from Kyrie, Kyrie. I don't know, I haven't read this one. But it's just a little poster they threw in, beautiful color. On the back of this, another little mini poster, we have, these are the women from No Longer Human. One of his works that I don't own. I haven't read that one yet. So, there you go. Beautiful colors on this. I wish the whole thing could be in color. Here's a nice little thing. It's Frankenstein and Innsmouth. So it's like a mix of Frankenstein and H.P. Lovecraft stuff. This is a really just horrendous looking thing. Because Junji Ito could, he draws really kind of slick, but he can also draw really gnarly. That's how he started out, drawing more gnarly, I guess. Here's a little color piece from Uzumaki, his classic graphic novel collection. And these next 3 paintings are from No Longer Human. I really like this one. This is just totally this different style I've ever seen from Ito. As well as this one. Almost this cartoony style. Just beautiful color, too. And this is also from No Longer Human, which I can't wait to get that one. I really want to read it. So shows you what's in the color gallery and the contents page. So there's a lot of color in this book, a lot more than your average Ito collection. This first one is terrifying. Billions Alone. And this guy's walking his dog. He finds this couple sewed together with fishing line. And, they're dead, of course. And then we cut away to this kid who's kind of, he's in his early 20s, I believe. He's kind of a weird kid. He dropped out of high school in 7th grade. It sounds like he almost has agoraphobia. He really barely leaves his room. He's kind of a weirdo, kind of a misanthrope. Just wants to be alone. His mother's worried about him. And, but she says, honey, you should come out of your room. I have a invitation here. A class reunion came. And he actually was considering going just because there was one girl who was nice to him in high school, Natsuko. She was really cute and popular, but she was kind of nice to him. So he's kind of had a crush on her all these years. So as he's listening to the radio one day, all of a sudden someone jams the frequency and it's this weird pronouncement. Come together, everyone come together. Being by yourself is boring. We're all friends. Reach out from the heart. Billions alone. Billions alone. And he's like, what the hell is that? So the next day, who should show up at his house but Natsuko? So the mother tells him she's here, so he comes out of his room for like the first time, and who knows. And she's like, hey, I'm planning the class reunion. I really hope you come. It was kind of weird how you dropped out of 7th grade. Everyone's been wondering, what happened to you. She takes him to like a meeting at a restaurant. The people planning the reunion are meeting. And unfortunately, one of the guys is her fiance. So he's a little crushed by that. He didn't realize that she was engaged. And so the next day, or maybe that day. No, I think it's the next day. Or no, I think it is. Sorry. There's a commotion by the canal, and they find more people. This time, 5 people, 6 people sewed together with fishing line, all dead. Pretty horrific looking. And then all of a sudden, this plane drops all these flyers, and it's the Billions Alone Club, with kind of that pronouncement from the radio. This kind of weird cryptic message. So, the rumors spread. More and more people are found like this, including one of his old classmates who was at that little class reunion meeting. One of those guys disappeared and then popped up in this even larger multi-corpse configuration. And Japan people start freaking out. It's on the news. They start telling people not to congregate at all, because it seems like whenever people congregate, they get targeted and they disappear and end up all sewed together. Yeah, on Christmas Day, there's this massive thing in the square. All these people sewn together in random ways. It was almost like a human daisy chain thing. It's pretty horrific. So all the pundits on TV are talking about it. They don't know what's going on. So I guess for some reason, the class reunion is still going to happen, even though people are saying you shouldn't congregate, but they have extra security. They figure, okay, we're going to have extra cops. This is going to happen. So he goes, and Natsuka's there. She comes out for a second. The police are kind of harassing the protagonist because he wasn't sure if he was going to come in, so he was kind of lurking outside, so they thought he looked suspicious. She runs out and says, no, he's with me. He's a classmate. When she goes back in, the whole auditorium of like 500 people, they're gone. Like in probably a minute. So obviously something crazy supernatural is going on here. Like, this is just nuts. I kind of like, that's what makes this story scary to me, is they don't really explain what the hell is going on. So, of course, the next day, all the students are in this massive clusterfuck here. They find them. So Japan is completely secluded. Everyone's, like, even the husband and wives are sleeping in separate rooms, and parents are putting their children in different rooms. Even to be in the room with someone is a risk. So Natsuka calls him up. Her fiance, he was one of the ones who disappeared, so he's probably dead, and it's going to end up in one of those configurations. But she says, I'm really lonely, and he kind of invites himself over, and she's into it. She's like, yeah, I just want to, I know it's dangerous, but I'm lonely. So as he's walking over there, he sees the plane dropping more flyers for the Billions Alone Club, but then 3 Army jet fighters take off after it. So he's kind of happy. He's like, oh, the military's finally going to get those guys. We're finally doing something about it. And he can't wait to tell Natsuko. And by the time he gets there, though, he gets quite a rude awakening, because he can hear, before he sees her, he hears her chanting the Billions Alone mantra. And he finds her sewing together her parents and her dog even. And that's the shock ending. It's kind of horrifying. The Human Chair is based on a story by Edogawa Rampo, who I think was a writer in the early 20th century, horror writer. And This one is creepy as hell. So this woman, she goes into an upholstery shop. She's thinking about buying a chair because she's a writer. And she wants a nice chair to write in. And the proprietor of the shop shows her this weird old chair because he's like, I want to tell you a story. Here, look at this chair. You see this chair? So he brings up this woman from like 100 years ago. She was a secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and she was an accomplished writer. So people would send her manuscripts all the time, this woman. And she gets the weirdest one where someone sends her a story about a guy who's kind of a pervert who sews himself into a chair because he knows women will sit on it and, get off on that. And so she shows it to her editor, the guy who publishes her stories. And he's fascinated by it. And they print it. He even says it's like it won the readers poll. And he wants to find more stories by this guy. But the address that was, that she had on her manuscript that she gave him, he hunted it down and no one lives there. So he's like, if he ever gets in touch again, we'd like to talk to him. We want to print more of his stories. So she's starting to get a little creeped out because she's thinking the story is about a woman just like me who has a huge chair with a guy inside of it. And my husband bought this really comfy chair. So she's starting to be like, shit. She asked her husband where he bought it. He says he bought it at an auction. So one night she wakes up and she hears someone in the house. She's like, get up, get up. He has a big staff or something to fight him off if they find a criminal. But they go into the room with the chair. And when he's not looking, the wife sees it squirming and moving. You can almost see his face trying to press out. And she starts screaming, but when he looks over, of course, it's not moving anymore. That typical horror movie thing. He has some of his assistants come in to check out the chair. They can't find any opening or anything like that. So just to prove his point, he starts whapping the chair. It's like, if someone's in there, he's not going to be too happy. But, there's no sound. There's not a twitch. So he says, see? Don't you think the guy would have screamed or made a sound if there was some guy in there? She gets another manuscript from this guy. And he kind of is saying, like, you haven't been sitting in the chair recently. This makes me sad. And, the other night when your husband beat the chair, that was really, it was a great suffering for me. I wasn't very happy about that. And he kind of tells her, puts this idea in her head that, like, she can't write unless she's sitting in that chair. It's almost like he's giving her ideas subconsciously that he kind of needs her. He's very in love with her, it sounds like. So she won't sit in the chair anymore. She's writing in this other room. And she does have writer's block. The guy was kind of right. She seems like she can't write unless she's in the chair. The husband's kind of annoyed with her about the whole thing. Stop blaming the chair. So he goes to sit in the chair one day. And when she goes to talk to him, all of a sudden he's unresponsive. And he falls over. And see, there's a knife. The guy in the chair just stabbed him through the upholstery. And the knife pulls back. She calls the police. She tells them the story. They're kind of at first like, that sounds crazy. But they do see a knife slit in the chair. So they cut open the back. And look what they find. They actually find a living compartment where someone could live in this chair. It's all hollowed out. There's actually cans of food and some water here. And there's the knife. So she's like, fuck. I was sitting in that chair the whole time. So we flash forward to the present. He's the furniture shop proprietor is telling her the story. It turns out that, this is a real story. It happened. But what's weird is that woman, the secretary who was a writer, she kind of lost her mind. And she fell in love with the guy in the chair and went to live with him in the chair. And So they had a very strange married life together inside of a chair. And so he says, oh yeah, I want to show you something else. And he pulls out the back of the chair. And it turns out they're his parents. Their corpses are still in this chair. And it was a strange, bizarre married life they had. So she leaves the shop. He's like, hey, I could make you a chair. It'll help with your writing, because she's a writer. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So she goes back to the city. She looks up shit on the internet, and she's like, oh yeah, that story's real. There's news stories about all the shit this guy told me. And then these delivery men knock on the door, and they say, hey, we got a chair for you. She's like, no, I didn't order a chair. And they drop it. And the last panel, the chair's squirming. It's probably that guy in there. Here's a little bio of Edogawa Rampo. Yeah, 1894 to 1965. And the reason why he was Edogawa, that was like his Japanese kind of approximation of Edgar Allan Poe. He was a big fan. So we have a second story by him, An Unearthly Love. This one's, you could tell Ito didn't write it, because Ito's stories are very creepy and scary. This one's just kind of, I don't know. It's nothing unique. There's this weird guy. He's a rich nobleman, and supposedly the rumor is that he doesn't like women, is a misogynist, never really wanted to get married. But then this woman, I guess he wants to marry. He meets this woman, and, you know, their first night together and the weeks after that, he's just like, he's very loving in a way, at least verbally. He's always just like, I love you, I love you, I love you. But he also acts distant and weird. Something's off. So one night after he goes to sleep, and they both go to sleep eventually, and he wakes up in the middle of the night and sneaks out. She wakes up just in time to see him. She follows him to this little guest house in the back, and up in the attic, she can't lift the lid, but she can listen. And he's talking to a woman, professing his love to her, and she to him. And saying, basically he's telling this person that, like, I keep trying to love Kyoko, but it's hopeless. That's Kyoko, his wife. So she's just like, oh my God, what the fuck's going on there? So she doesn't want him to catch her eavesdropping. So then, eventually, I think after he leaves, she creeps into the attic. But she doesn't see anything untoward. She doesn't see a woman in there or anything. So the husband is acting weirder and weirder, almost seems ill. And so one day when he's away, or I don't know if he's asleep, she creeps into the attic, and this time she starts opening stuff. And she opens this chest, and there's this little doll in there. And that's who he's in love with. The cold, lifeless doll. So the next night she peers in, and she actually sees him making love to the doll passionately and with a lot of love. And she's so jealous and angry. Yeah, her face, look at that drawing. She totally looks like she's 50 years older. She's so contorted with rage. So the next day, when he goes up to his secret love cabana, he opens up the chest, finds the doll totally mutilated. The wife got her revenge. So she's in the bedroom figuring that soon he'll come down, either angry or whatever. But he never comes back. So after a while, she goes back to the love den, and he's killed himself because she killed his love, his true love. So this isn't nearly as creepy as a normal Ito story. But still, beautifully drawn. This story's really weird. It's not very horrific, but it's kind of a science fiction story. Venus in the Blind Eye. And there's this beautiful woman. She has all these admirers, and it's very weird. They all seem to have this problem. Whenever she gets close to them, she fades out of view and becomes invisible. They don't know why. they have no clue what the hell's going on, but they're all kind of a crush on her, so they want to hang out with her. So when she runs away here, they can see her again. So, yeah, this guy, he realizes these guys are in the same boat. They can't see her either. So the story behind her is that she's the daughter of, like, Japan's preeminent UFOologist. She's into it, too. She's knows her UFOs pretty well. And he met her once at this UFO seminar, or at least saw her. And they have this society. And so he joins pretty much just to hang out next to her. Yeah, Junji Ito really can draw cute women. I mean, she looks gorgeous. You can understand why someone would be obsessed with her. It turns out all these other guys join for the same reason. And the father always hosts the meetings, always serves this nice, great wine, and they, get everyone drunk. And then everyone would she'd do a lecture, and everyone would just be, drooling. So all the women in the society pretty soon after start leaving. They're just like, we see what's going on here. These guys just want to hook up with this beautiful girl. But the father starts, having his doubts. He's like, I don't know if I like this anymore. It seems like all these guys are joining just to drool over you. So this new guy joins one day. But apparently he can totally see her. Because he says, oh, wow, what a surprise at how incredibly beautiful the chairperson is. And so he seems to be able to see her. And one of the guys finally, after a long time, basically says, hey, can we talk about something else on the agenda tonight? I think I was abducted because I woke up on a park bench after some night of drinking here, and I think I saw some white shadow people in my delirium, and ever since then, I can't see you. Whenever you're close to me, you start disappearing. All the other guys realize that, yeah, that happened to me too, I guess. And he's got a little scar on the back of his head. He shows off. He says, see, here's proof. This is the work of aliens. They, worked on my brain or something. All the other guys start showing off their scars. And they realize, yeah, I was abducted too. And that's why we can't see her either. So in his panic, he also says that he loves her. He admits that he's totally in love with her. And she's like, settle down. What the hell's going on here? And these guys all start freaking out. They can't see her, but they're all like trying to find her with their hands. And the one nice guy, he's like, guys, cut it out. What the hell are you doing? Stop. And the new guy helps out too. And, the new guy who can see her. The father comes in and says, that's enough. Enough of this shit. I'm disbanding the society. Leave my daughter alone. Get the hell out of here. But he lets the new guy stay. And, for protecting his daughter. He's grateful. So she's crying. She just can't believe, all this shit. And the father's giving this new guy some nice wine. And the guy's getting a little tipsy. And, he admits that, yeah, but, your daughter really is a beauty. She really is, he's slurring. And as soon as he passes out, this guy, the father, calls his colleague, and they take him down to some secret operating theater he's got. And we realize that the whole time he's been doing this to all these young men who've got a crush on his daughter. He doesn't like it. So whenever these guys express interest in his daughter, he gets them drunk, does this weird surgery where their visual cortex reacts to something in her earrings that she wears all the time. And she can't see. They can't see her anymore. So the new guy wakes up after his surgery, and he thinks he was abducted too. So he runs back to the house to find out what the hell is going on, because, why did I wake up in the hospital after hanging out with that guy? The maid is dead. And then he sees all of the guys from the UFO Society abducting the Venus away. Well, Mariko is her name. And they're saying she's an alien. She's the one who, has been confusing us. And he tries to rescue her, but they knock him out with a rock. The next day she's found, or that evening she's found, barely recognizable body found in the garden. They just killed her. They probably did other things too, unfortunately. So this last guy, he has this strange thing, you know, because they take the implants out of everyone's head. Of course, once they do, all the guys are mortified at what they did. They're still in jail, though. And so the protagonist guy, every time he closes his eyes, or a lot of times, he sees this kaleidoscope of her face. It's almost like all the times he didn't see her still imprinted on his retinas. And so now it's like he can't help but see her. This next one is really fucking creepy. The licking woman. God, I love seeing this color stuff. In Japan, they do that. Some of the mangas will just have the first few pages in color, and then it'll go back to black and white. But man, I kind of wish there was a whole story in color. Because, I mean, his black and white is great, but this color is gorgeous. So this guy's walking through the city on a humid night, and he sees this creepy-looking woman, and when she opens her mouth, this horrible tongue comes out. And you just hear him scream, so you don't know what happens. So this guy makes it to his house. He's got I believe it's his fiance and their dog. And he tells her what happened. And he says he still feels it on his skin. His skin feels weird. The dog licks his hand. And that night, after a few hours of sleep, he wakes up in pain. He says his skin stings. And the dog is like foaming at the mouth, and he's got some infection. And the next day he's dead. So it turns out there's some like kind of poison in this licking woman's tongue, in her saliva. So on another warm and humid night, it seems that the licking woman likes that. Warm and humid nights. She finds another victim and licks him. And this guy dies too. So it starts becoming a news story. So like neighborhood watch committees start forming. People start walking around patrolling, trying to find her. They realize that as if she licks you, you can like heal yourself by washing the wound with some water. So they all have some water, bottled water with them. They hear a scream. There's this little boy about to be licked by the licking woman. Oh, she does lick him, sorry. With that nasty tongue of hers. There's just only Junji Ito could come up with something that's just repulsive. He's so good at that, coming up with these horrific images. It's like he reaches into your nightmares and pulls out something. So she runs away. They wash off the kid so he doesn't die. And the woman whose fiance and dog were killed by her, she chases after her down an alley. And this is creepy, the way she just twirls in place to face her. And then comes after her with her tongue. And, oh God, look how nasty this shit is. Licks her face and runs off. The woman, though, she's, so angry for her killing, her family, she tackles her. And they wash her off so she doesn't die. She's on the news. She's in police custody. Somehow her tongue doesn't look as weird, and there's no sign of poison, so they can't get her for the murders. There's not enough evidence, but she is put in a mental institution. And her victims, though, remain paralyzed with terror. If a dog licks their hand, they freak out, and it's hard. So several years later, she's in a bar, and she meets this woman who just happens to be another licking victim, the victim of the licking woman. And they commiserate together. And basically this, the short-haired woman from the beginning, she finds out from the other woman that they released her that day. They discharged her. And she's pissed off. She's like, what? So she can kill more? So she's basically like, I'm going to kill that woman. I don't give a shit what the cops say or anything. I'm going to hunt her down and murder her for what she did. So the other woman, the long-haired woman, she works in a medical place. So she said, I can get you cyanide. We can put cyanide in our skin so when she licks us, she'll die. So they go out on a warm, humid night to hunt down this licking woman. And she puts cyanide in her skin, but this time she totally French kisses her. And but then she does lick her arm where the cyanide is, and it works. She's poisoned, she collapses, but then things get even gnarlier. So as she's dying, she rips at her own fat, bulbous tongue. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Tongue's coming out. She rips it out, and the thing starts plopping around. God, that's so disgusting. And it jumps into her mouth, the heroine's mouth. She spits it out and pours water down her throat so she doesn't die. And the thing's still plopping around, though, and she runs away. They never find it. The news doesn't even mention it, that there's this flopping tongue around when they found the licking woman, because the news mentions that she's dead. So there were some glasses in the licking woman's bag, and you know, that woman that gave her the cyanide was wearing glasses, so she's like, wait, this thinks they're the same person. She meets some new guy, and they fall in love. And the first time they profess their love to each other, they kiss. And then, so she was infected by the tongue, I guess. And it's gotten even bigger. And it finally jumps out of her mouth. And it's plopping around, bouncing around, happy as a clam. And both of them die of the poison and the cyanide. There's cyanide in their blood. And that's how it ends, just horrifying. This next comic is very weird for Junji Ito. It's not scary at all. It's not meant to be. It's an autobio comic. It's Junji Ito just talking about his childhood, how he was a huge fan of Kazuo Ume's, who was the master of horror manga when Junji Ito was a boy. And he loved his stuff, and it inspired him to do horror manga. It's just a cute little story about cute little Junji Ito discovering comics and manga and spending all of his money, seeing him on TV one night. I guess this guy sang too. He'd be on TV shows all the time and, you know, entertain. So, yeah, it's kind of a nice little story. Very un-Ito-like. And as an adult, when he's a popular cartoonist, apparently this Ume's fellow is going to make a movie, and they said, we want you to do the manga adaptation. So this is Ito trying to draw like Ume's if he was going to do the comic, but he ends up not doing it. He just doesn't have the time to do this adaptation. But he goes to see the movie that Ume's makes, and it's really good. I'd like to see this movie. So basically, he's happy at the end that, like, now he can enjoy Ume's manga and his film because he's great at both. So here we have another short story based on another author's work, Robert Hitchens, How Love Came to Professor Kurita. And this is kind of not that scary, but it's very about human nature, basically. So, this young woman finds a manuscript in her parents' home. She's a writer has writer's block. Once again, we have a writer with writer's block. So she goes to hang out with her parents for a little while, clear her head, and they've got a big library, and she finds this thing. It's a descendant of theirs. I'm sorry, a predecessor of theirs, who wrote this diary of a parrot woman. She reads it, and she's like, Mom, apparently one of our ancestors knew the famous author, Professor Kurita. Apparently he was hot shit. He's some great writer from the, 100 years ago. And she was a student at the university where he taught. So now we flash back to that time. And this author, Kurita asked this Catholic priest to come visit him. He wants to ask him about Jesus and God for one of his stories. But basically they just get into a theological argument. Even beyond theology, this guy is just like, love is stupid. There's no such thing as love. Emotional or physical love, it's the height of foolishness. All that matters is creating beauty. Because apparently his writing is very beautiful, and a lot of people wish they could write like him. He's got this parrot that he's a very astute parrot. He doesn't just mimic everything. It seems like he studies people before he mimics them, and then says just the right thing at the right moment. We see that student who wrote that journal, the ancestor of the lead character, and she wants to be a writer, so she's in awe of Kurita, and he just disdains her. He's just, God, this fucking girl was hounding me and harassing me. And the priest thinks he's helping. He says, like, maybe if you loved him with all your heart, because it seems like you admire him so much, it's bordering on love. Maybe if you loved him with all your heart, he might see the beauty of your work. And she's kind of just into it. Like, yeah, I guess I kind of did love him. I just could never admit it. And then he feels a hot breath in his neck. And doesn't know what the hell just happened, but, he's whatever. He figures it's just a fluke. So when he goes to visit Kurita the next day, he says that the woman wrote a story for him to read, and it was obviously like a love letter to him. It was in the form of a story. And, he's just like, I ripped it up, and it's lining the parrot stand right now. That's what the parrot's pooping on. So I believe it's the next day, or when he's walking back, there's a commotion. Someone drowned themselves in the river. And it's her. It's that young author. And when he goes over to Kurita's house to let him know what the hell's going on, Kurita's freaking out. He's contorting himself. It looks like he's got the case of the fidgets. And he tells him that, like, he feels this presence, and the presence is, like, loving. It's, like, fondling him and touching him with, just lingering by his side. And he's kind of wigging out. And he's like, I know I can't see it, but there's definitely someone here touching me in this lewd manner, and it's following me everywhere I go. I don't know what the hell's going on. And he's like, if you're, Christian God can't help me, get the fuck out. But he tells him, he says, your student tried to commit suicide today. And he's like, I think it's her. It's her brain, somehow even though she's not dead yet, she's already a ghost. So when he comes to visit him several days later, Kurita's in bad shape. The housekeeper says he's basically dying of exhaustion because he's constantly fidgeting and he can't relax because this ghost is touching him and feeling him. And there's a little flashback within the flashback. The priest had a similar thing happen. One of his parishioners fell in love with him and was being lewd and really obsessive about him, kind of stalking him. And then finally, they can see it. Look, you can see the imprint of the hand reaching for his crotch. The priest can see this. And the housekeeper. And then the parrot starts doing almost like the voice of the woman. I love you, I want you. Please love only me. And it reminds the priest of the woman who used to harass him. He's having, PTSD about it. We can even see this outline of this woman, and the parrot's her voice. And now the parrot's doing that woman from his past. She's saying, sorry, Father Murchison, I was trying to make you jealous, but it's your fault for having an affair with that Japanese girl. So apparently he committed a sin. And so now we flash back to the present. She's done reading the journal, and she feels a little hot breath on her neck. So maybe she has a ghostly admirer as well. This next one is one of the creepiest Ito stories. Only Junji Ito could write this stuff. There's this earthquake in Japan. A fault appears. It's deep and several kilometers long. So it's on the news. It's a big story. So a lot of people are like, hey, I'm going to hike up there and check it out. This new fault that appeared was buried for, millennia. He meets a girl on the way. She has the same idea in her head. And they finally get near the fault and they find it. And there's already people there and everyone's fascinated. There's all these human-shaped holes in the rock wall. And people are just like, this wall hasn't been shown like since caveman times. So who could have done this except for like cavemen? But this is just amazing, like engineering feat. So it's a totally confusing. So they send a meter down, what are those fiber scopes? 30 meters in, they still can't find the end of it. So it's like, this is baffling. So people keep coming back, and then one day, this one dude shows up. He's also, saw the thing on the news and wants to come. He's a little more obsessed about the whole thing, though, because he saw the thing on the people holes. And he realizes that this one's his hole. He's like, look, that's me. It perfectly fits me. He takes off his clothes, down to his underwear, and he goes into it, slip, almost like it sucks him in. So he's like, come back, it's dangerous, what are you doing? But it's like this guy couldn't help himself. The hole was like calling out to him. So they send the fiber sensor down again. He's already past the 30-meter thing, so he's deep in there. So over the ensuing days and weeks, more and more people start showing up, like that other guy. They're kind of obsessed with finding their hole, and once they do, they can't help but go into it. The protagonist has a nightmare about being in the hole himself. Wakes up, his new kind of girlfriend's there. They're already kind of becoming attracted to each other. So the next day she says, I gotta show you something. She found her hole. She's like, it's identical to me. And she starts like sweating, and like she's freaking out, like it's calling out to her, like, you have to come inside me. And she's hearing the call. So he takes her away. He's like, don't even think about it. You'll die. It's scary. So more and more people, as the days and weeks go on, are finding their holes and just like breaking through the ranks and climbing in. Like this guy has to climb up a little high. And yeah, people start going crazy for it. They can't even stop him. So she starts freaking out, like she really wants to go in her hole. So our protagonist, he fills up the hole with rocks so she can't go in, and hoping that'll like stop her urge to do that. That night they realize they're getting a little closer. He has another dream. In this one, he's a caveman, and as punishment, he's forced into one of these holes. So maybe that's why the hole started, as kind of a punishment for crime. When he's inside of it, the deeper you go in, the more it contorts your body. So slowly, your neck will get longer and your arms will it'll contort you. At least in the dream, that's what he imagines. So he wakes up screaming, and the woman's gone. He runs to the place where her hole is. All the rocks have been pulled out, and she obviously went inside. And he's bereft. So he's crying outside the hole, and all of a sudden there's this beautiful color panel. Kind of interesting. And he sees his own hole. So he's got nothing left for now. He's so sad. So he goes into it, goes in the hole, fits him perfectly. And then months later, they finally find the other side of this thing. But none of the holes are human-shaped. They're all just kind of look like gangly things. And so we find out why. Because it's like a mile in this mountain. And it slowly warps you. And when they look in, the first guy is popping out, completely warped by the passage through this human-shaped tunnel thing. That's how it ends, a colored panel. It's some terrifying shit. Just that concept is so bizarre. This other next story is 4 pages, all color. It's kind of silly. These people have a beautiful new home. They have people over. Everyone's happy. Hey, your house is great. And then they hear someone yelling, help. And the father somehow is under the main principal post of the building. So he can't be moved or the whole house will collapse. Well, he could be, but he's like, oh, if you move me, the house will collapse. Just let me die here. And the family just says, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. So they hang out with him until he dies. And he'll never reveal the secret of how he got under the post in the first place. It's ridiculous. But it's just some beautiful Junji Ito artwork. But it's so silly. It doesn't make any sense. And then I believe this is the last story. This one's creepy as fuck. Someone hears a baby crying in the graveyard, and it's coming from a grave. When they open up the grave, it's a living baby in there, even though it's a 9-month-old corpse. And the 9-month-old corpse is the ex-wife, or dead wife, of this guy, kind of a rich nobleman. The baby's healthy, and it doesn't make any sense, but this corpse gave birth to a baby. So, yeah, it's totally connected by an umbilical cord. It makes no medical sense. So they take the baby home, and so this guy, after his wife died, he married his mistress. I'm sorry. He was having an affair with her in the first place. But then the wife died, and he married her. They have a baby together. So now he wants to bring home this corpse baby, and she's like, no fucking way. I'm definitely not going to nurse that thing. I don't even, whatever. That's the baby from your other wife. I don't want nothing to do with it. So he finds some nursemaid to take care of the baby. And I think she already works in the house. The baby's kind of disgusting and homely. So he has a flashback to when he was married to this woman before she died, the previous year. And she knows about his mistress. She can't have a baby. That's the other strange thing. In life, she couldn't even have a baby. And now, as a corpse, she has a baby. So she's like, yeah, we're going to take that baby. We'll raise him as our own. Because, she's just your mistress. So he tells the mistress, she's like, you didn't tell her yes, did you? This child is mine. So she basically that night, they're fucking passionately proclaiming their love for each other. She says, "No, what we have to do, what you have to do, you've got to kill your wife. If you really love me, you will." And she convinces him. She gives him poison, and he poisons his wife, and she dies. And then he marries his mistress. So then we come back to the present, and his little corpse baby is scaring all the local children. Look at him. He's like Uncle Fester's nephew. It's this creepy kid. And, the mistress, the ex-mistress, she ties him up sadistically. She's mean. She really does not like this guy. And then when the maid, takes pity on the corpse child, she's like, I'm going to discipline you first. You need to discipline that child, but I'm going to discipline you first. She ties her up. Ties up the maid. Is pouring buckets of water on her head. And the husband comes in. He's like, what are you doing? And the maid starts laughing. She's like, you don't get it. The master of the house, he had sex with his wife after she died at the wake. Because she was accusing him of having sex with her like right before she died, while she was dying. And that's why she laughs. It's like, no, he had sex with her after she died. I kind of saw it. And a nurse's intuition, she says. And she says, is this true? And he says, I had no choice. She asked me to. So I guess even though she's dead, she kind of came back to life to say, I want a baby, and you have to give me one. And right then, corpse baby comes in, just freaking everyone out. And so she dies. The new wife, she went out of her head and died from the just shock of it all. And then the guy marries the maid. So he's like a serial, I don't know what you call that. It just keeps, his wife's dying, and then he marries the next person. So that's it. Once again, beautiful end papers. That's Junji Ito's Venus in the Blind Spot. There's so many graphic novels in this series. I recommend you get them all. They're just beautiful publishing artifacts. But of course, Junji Ito, his stuff is so rewarding. He has so many great comic stories. Start with Uzumaki, his classic 3-part graphic novel. That'll get you hooked. If that doesn't, then you just don't like Junji Ito. But he's got so many other ones. You might know him from his film adaptations. There's a movie of Uzumaki. And they even made it in America. They remade it in English as Spiral. So check out Junji Ito's stuff. It's really good. And these Viz editions, if you can get them, you should be able to. Just really nice in your library. So thanks for joining us, and I hope you had a good time. And I'll see you next time. Bye.